Oh, hi there, guys. So, Wes Streeting was on the TV yesterday talking about the government's upcoming 10-year health plan, how the government is planning to work with supermarkets to try to drive down obesity. So, before I get into what Wes has to say, please do subscribe for daily videos and please like the video if you find what I talk about interesting. So, let's see what Wes Streeting has got to say here.
To take the sort of statist, nanny-stated approach of dictating to people the prices, the marketing, or we can work with supermarkets, including those like Sainsbury's and Tesco's that's welcome the approach, and let them decide how to market their products,
Sure.
how to price their products to encourage healthier eating. We can work with people to help them get their weight down with weight loss jabs, which are, I think, showing encouraging signs of being impactful. If we don't do these things, the National Health Service looks increasingly unsustainable in terms of the demand placed on it.
Okay.
And I don't want the NHS to go bust. So this week, with our 10-year plan on health, we'll be setting out the steps to reform and invest in our National Health Service to get it back on its feet and make it fit for the future. But it's also a 10-year plan for health, how we have a healthier, happier nation with all of us living well for longer in a fairer country.
Yeah, so as Streeting said there, the government are going to publish their 10-year plan for health this week. But I certainly hope they set out something more substantial than this, because otherwise it's going to be another 10 years wasted, frankly. Now, I believe in personal responsibility, but the reality is that in the UK, your weight is determined to a very large degree by where you live. So if you look at the stats on screen now, there's a more than 20% difference in obesity levels between certain areas in the UK. So we can talk about personal responsibility, and there's a place for that, and we can talk about supermarkets restricting access to sugary drinks, and there's a place for that. But until we as a country decide to do something about rampant inequality, both regional and income inequality, then we're absolutely going to be onto a loser. Because this is not just about obesity either. This sort of inequality that's on screen now, this also maps onto life expectancy, drug and alcohol use, child sexual exploitation, and any other number of negative outcomes for people. My 1 minute analysis of this is that the places with the most obese people are deprived areas. Most of them are going to have a history of industrial employment which were left on the scrap heap as a result of globalisation. People in those places were forgotten when the industry was closed down, and then as a result their incomes nosedived, their quality of life drastically reduced as a result, and their health suffered. When you have little money and little hope, it then becomes much harder to make positive choices around things like your lifestyle and your food. So let's think of a fictional single dad of 2 children in Blackpool. The mum sadly passed away recently, and the dad and 2 children were offered social housing after that, but the only house they could get was on the edge of town, far away from their support network and the grandparents. One of the children's in nursery and the other is in school. So this means that dad can't go out to work, so he's reliant on benefits. He gets universal credit, which is about $1,300 a month. But after his housing, bills and utilities, he's left with pretty much nothing at the end of each month. Now, when the baby's at nursery, he gets 3 hours in the daytime to himself, but otherwise he's got the kids around the house at all times. During the 3 hours that the baby's at nursery, he needs to keep on top of the housework, do the shopping, and do all of the other menial tasks that parenting involves. But one of his issues is he doesn't drive, and there isn't a supermarket nearby. Now, we could get the bus, but then it's hard to lug the bags back on the bus. So the end result is that due to time pressures, quite often the shopping gets done at the local Spar on the estate. It's expensive food, it's not fresh, and most of the time it's convenience foods like pizza and chips. And then for the reasons I already mentioned, he also doesn't get any time to exercise or go to the gym. Now, until we start doing the heavy lifting on how our society's structured, or until we can make the day 27 hours long to give this guy another 3 hours a day without his kids around, all of this tinkering around the edges is going to do very little for him. And that analysis is just scratching the surface, really. When we talk about these inequalities, we also need to consider that they overlap, and that unmet needs in one area then often later lead to unmet needs in another area. So there's absolutely loads going on here, and we really need to think very seriously as a society about how we're going to tackle this stuff. Not just, do surface level fluff like what Streeting is suggesting here. So I hope the government's 10-year health plan is going to set out some ideas around this, and I'll update in another video later. So thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.